All right, guys, welcome back to the workshop. We've still got Big Hand Dave here, who just took us through the course out there and showed us a few cuts. And now we want to dive in a little bit deeper and find out more about your knives, Dave. I got to know about these things because, man, we're asking a lot of these knives. We're asking you to cut boards. We're asking you to slice paper. They are some extreme knives. So tell me a little bit about the knife itself. What's it made out of? Some of the specs on it.
My competition knives are made by Donovan Phillips, Big D Knives. The steel is CPM 4V. They're flat grind with a convex edge, horse barn style mat handle to kind of help reduce the shock. They're balanced about 2 inches from the handle.
Wow.
So they're very, they're forward heavy. They just want to cut.
Yeah, it's a heavy knife when I was using it, but man, it felt like it was well balanced, so I didn't feel like I'm hefting this big old heavy thing around. You can definitely tell there was a lot of care put into making sure they got the steel right on that. That's for sure.
These both of my knives are 28 ounces.
Okay.
So that's for a knife. That's a very heavy knife. This knife has a little bit more drop. If you see in the handle, there's a little bit more drop.
Yep.
Gives you a little bit more leverage to cut boards. Gives you a little bit more power, board cut. And I've named this knife the Breath Taker. We were doing a video one time, and the people we were doing it with said, "Oh, you got to have a knife name." So kind of just off the cuff, I did Breath Taker and Voodoo Shaker. And then I had to explain, I didn't have much choice. It was just really quick. This knife doesn't have the drop in the handle.
Yeah, you can see that, yeah.
You can see the drop isn't there. And so this is more of a finesse knife for the cuts. And now it doesn't make a lot of difference, but if in a competition, the course changes. So you may have a lot of boards on one course. You may have a lot of finesse type cuts like paper, golf tees, tomatoes, some type of fruit or something like that. So if there's more of this going on, I'll go with the finesse knife.
Gotcha.
If it's heavier, if there's 2x6s or more boards, heavy, I'll go with the knife with a little bit more drop. It gives me a little bit more power in that cut.
Now, when you're having your knives made, do you get a lot of say in how the influence on how they're made? Or you talk about having this draw on one handle versus the other. Is that partially your design?
No. Donovan actually has made the competition knives for probably 20 plus years.
Okay.
I'm making competition knives, but I don't feel like I'm to the level where I can make my race knives
Gotcha.
yet. So I'm making some trainer knives, and I'm trying to get better to make knives that I can compete with. But these are so balanced. And because of my hand, the knife is 15 inches long.
Okay.
With a 10-inch max blade. And y'all can find these specs at www.bladesports.org, the specs of the knives. But because my hand is so big, my knife is 9.5 inches long with a 5.5-inch handle. If not, it really just didn't fit my hand and cut well. So
that's the most customization he did for this particular.
Yes. And he dropped that one a little bit because he knew that, it would be more aggressive for boards, and had this one a little bit straighter. So, Donovan Phillips with Big D Knives, he really knows what he's doing, you know, and I pick his brain a lot when it comes to, competition knives and just knives in general.
Learning with your trainers and things like that. Now, what kind of steel is the knife made out of?
My two knives are made out of CPM 4V steel. It's a super steel. It's got excellent edge retention. Can be a booger to sharpen, but it's got excellent edge retention, and it is tough. As y'all seen, as we went through that competition, there was no sharpening in between.
No.
We cut, 4 boards with one knife. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with the edge, and it would still cut paper.
Jeez.
These knives, the CPM 4V retains an edge like crazy. Now, some of the other guys, they have knives made out of M4. That's another popular steel. PD1. is a popular steel. Venatus 4 Extra. But we also have people that make knives out of A2, 52-100. So kind of some cheaper steels. The difference that I see is sharpening between cuts.
Sure.
You know, I like a curved blade. To me it seems to be more forgiving when you're hitting things to have that little curve in the blade. Some people like a flat blade.
Yeah.
But if you're hitting on a flat surface, you've got to have that knife perfectly flat.
Dead on flat with
on.
a flat blade.
And if the blade is curved, then you've got a little bit of forgiveness, and you actually cut into the board underneath, like we did out there, the board underneath the golf ball.
Yep.
And so you don't have to be as flat with the curved blade.
A little more forgiving there.
It's a little bit more forgiving, and I like that. Now, it's not much of a curve, as you say, but it is a slight curve. So that's what I'm working on and trying to kind of perfect and get and I can really tool it in to what fits me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And really dial it in, say, hey, this works, this doesn't work. You know, I'm going to straighten it out a little bit. Or
when you're building knives like that, you're talking about, you said 2 different price points when it comes to the steel. What are we talking versus, like, you know, the M4s that you're building for practice versus something like this?
A knife like this will cost in the range of $1,000.
Oh, complete. Okay.
Give or take. An A2 knife or a practice type knife will probably be in the range of $400.
Okay.
Or maybe a little bit cheaper.
No, just steel alone for something like that.
Steel alone is about maybe, I'd say close to $400.
Yeah. So if you're building, you don't want to mess up with $400 worth of steel.
No, you want to.
I can see why you want to practice a little bit with the lesser material there before you move on to start making your own with this kind of metal. That's for sure. Yeah. All right, Dave. So the CPM 4V is kind of a unique steel that I hadn't heard a whole lot about before. I've heard of the 3V before, but 4V is a little more unique. Tell us about like how hard that steel is and what makes it so unique.
This is heat treated to 62 hardness.
Okay. And
usually, like if you get that hard, the steel will get brittle.
Yeah.
But the 4V doesn't. It's got it's very tough, as you saw what we put it through.
Put it through.
The edge retention is amazing at that 62 Rockwell hardness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I saw and read of some testing that people have done with CPM 4V and just a common, high carbon steel, and the cutability. Cutting like a 1-inch manila rope, they take just a regular, a D2 or a regular, high carbon steel, and it'll cut through rope, and they may cut through, 30 pieces of 1-inch rope before it won't shave. And I've seen a study that says the CPM 4V could cut through about 900 and still shave.
That's incredible.
So that tells you, and I can't remember where that study is that I read, but that tells you kind of the edge retention, the toughness.
Yeah.
And, just the hardness of this steel.
It definitely shows in these knives and the tasks you're asking them to do. Let's talk a little bit more about your handle material here. You said it was horse mat?
Yes, it's barn stall mat.
Wow.
This barn stall mat is made from recyclable material. It is very forgiving. It on the edge when you're hitting with it, and I guess as you saw when you were using it, it absorbs that shock.
Yeah.
And so, if you use something tougher, a wood or any other type of handle material, like I've put on some of my trainers, it would just
shock
eat
you clear
up.
up. Shoulder,
yeah,
I
just
imagine.
Tons of shock because you saw how hard you hit the 2x4. So and you can imagine that shock without having something that kind of helped eat that shock up.
It worked great. And then as far as customizing that to your hand, is that something you worked on, or did Donovan do that?
Donovan actually did that. I did a little bit here to just kind of finish it off, but Donovan actually customized it to my hand. Wow. I sent him some pictures of my hand, and of course he looked at it. I went to a shop once, and he was really great at customizing. He's been really great to learn from.
Awesome. Fits you like a glove, that's for sure.
Yeah. It fit me better than it fit y'all.
I imagine. Yeah, we were trying to get our hand in your your lanyard, which I want to talk about next, but it was like wrapping it around her hand like 3 or 4 times when it was just a little tiny thing around Dave's wrist. But tell me about this front where you've got the lanyard placed.
This front lanyard come about Warren Osborne, who designed the 940 Benchmade and a lot of the Benchmade knives. He is one of the founders of Blade Sports as we know it now.
Really?
Yeah, Blade Sports International. And I did not get to meet Warren, but I had the opportunity to go to his house and meet his family and his daughter and his wife. Unfortunately, Warren had died the year before. He was practicing with a knife, and he was real big, from what I hear from other people, on testing knives and testing steels and seeing what worked best. And he would make knives out of different steel and take them to outfitters and say, okay, I want you to clean as many deer with this knife or work with this knife until it doesn't work anymore. Tell me how many ropes you cut with it. Tell me what you did with it. And then when it doesn't cut, put it to the side and write down what you did. And he would just give outfitters and guides just, lots of knives to try that with and stuff. He was practicing one day and he was using a rear lanyard, and the knife got away from him and actually injured him. And he developed the front lanyard for the Blade Sports, and it's amazing. I really like the front lanyard, and actually on any bigger knife like the Becker here, I really encourage anybody to put a front lanyard on at any type of machete or anything. And what happens is when you put this lanyard on and you lock it in, even if it's not a competition knife, and you lock it in, then it's locked.
Yeah.
It's there. So you're retaining this knife. So if you're out in the woods and you're hacking trails, or your
hand gets tired,
and you lose the knife, then it's locked.
Yep.
It's not wagging around by your side.
In the back, it's swinging back.
Right. It's not swinging back on you. So the safety factor is huge on this front lanyard, where it just really locks you in, and it seems like it just helps you cut more, lets you be one with the knife more, kind of feel what's going on, but it just locks it in really, really good.
Now, is that required on all competition knives?
Yes.
Okay, so that's something that you have to have if you're going to compete in blade sport.
You have to have a front lanyard on the competition knife to compete in blade
Makes
sport.
sense. As far as angle goes on the knife, what angle are you putting on the edge for that knife?
I wouldn't say I know an exact angle. I would say around 15 degrees. It's a flat grind.
Okay.
With a convex edge. The convex edge, you kind of have that, in micro, and it puts more steel behind that edge. So the chance of you actually, bending the edge or, whatever, breaking that edge or chipping it or wrinkling it, it's a lot less possibility. So it's a lot stronger. That micro convex or that convex is a lot stronger.
All right, Dave. So these are knives, obviously, you can't just get anywhere. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. It's custom made only?
Custom made only. Donovan Phillips with Big D Knives made this one. I've got a knife made by Anthony Stovall. Carruthers Performance Knives. Big Chris.
Mainly guys that are involved.
Yeah, mainly guys involved in blade sports.
Okay.
James Clifton with Roosterfish Knives, but mainly guys involved in blade sports. Awesome. They can make a knife for you.
So outside of the realm of blade sport, what are you carrying? We always got to find out what you got in your pocket.
In my pocket today, I have a Fiddleback Forge, or on my side, I have a Fiddleback Forge little everyday carry knife made by Andy Roy. It's got a Fire Dog handle with a white liner and a tapered tang.
Beautiful little knife, man. That's awesome.
So it's a little Fiddleback Forge. This is my user, kind of my go-to. I have knives that I use. I may carry something different tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I just swap it in and out.
That's good company around here, man.
Yeah.
Always got to have a rotation going on.
That's right. This is what I have in my pocket today.
Right on.
So, and it's Micarta bolsters in there.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful knife, man. Cool. Thanks for sharing that with us. Mm-hmm. Well, guys, I think that's going to wrap up this video about the knife. Stay tuned. We've got more Dave coming up in the future. Thanks for watching.